There you are. I've been expecting you. And you know what? I've already poured myself a glass of wine. So come on in, get comfy, grab yourself something to drink, because I have a story for you.
This is my story. This is my song.
Tribute. He began singing at the age of 5 in church when he was touched to stand up and begin singing at the top of his lungs, overpowering the choir. Yizzle, I'm going to call her Zill for short. She is a young, naive Latina woman straight from the protection of her family. She has plunged herself deep into the issues of the day. She was determined to save the world and eventually marry Mr. Chicano. Well, leading up to the day they met, Tribute had recently arrived in California straight from Vietnam. One might say he was as crazy as he could be, and he was the singingest man you could ever meet. When the bombs were bursting over his head and he didn't know what to feel, he would go outside and start singing. He closed his eyes and he sang. And when he opened his eyes, there'd be 40 or 50 men sitting around and say, please, don't stop. And you know what? He never did, and he never has. He is the singingest man that one can ever meet. Tribute was totally clear music was his life, and that's the only thing he wanted more than anything else. Zills, however, had no idea who she was, what she wanted, except she wanted to do good in the world. As hip as he was is as shy as she was. There has only been 3 times in Zill's life that she actually heard a voice in her head speaking to her. The first time it happened was the day they met. That day, Zill had gone over some new acquaintance's house. They were going to work on correcting the text of a mnemonic phonics textbook. She was doing good in the world after all, you know. She was sitting there and as nerdy as you could ever imagine, shy as she could be, when her friend Arual heard a knock on the door, and it seems like her new boyfriend decided to stop by. And he had with him Tribute straight out of Vietnam, young and fun and full of, well, you know. So he walks in the door, takes one look at Zill, whom he really was not ready for. He goes up to her and immediately says, "Give me a kiss." Startled the heck out of Zill. She runs away into the next room, where, of course, he follows her. And he just, at that point, implanted the sweetest kiss and immediately forgot all about her. Later that evening, Zills and Tribute found themselves alone. The gentleman was back, and he just was talking and talking and talking. Zills looked at him with her big old wamba eyes, and out of the blue, I don't even think Zills could hear a word he was saying, but what she did hear was a voice in her head saying, "This is your husband. This is the man that you are going to marry." That was the first time Lils had ever experienced anything like that.
Hold you close, I wanna talk to you, 'cause tonight feels so right. Can I have this dance?
Well, that was something, wasn't it? But it didn't all work out right away. So 5 months go by, and she had never given him her number. He never asked for her number. And remember, she was too shy to even talk. So on the way to work one day, she saw him on the street, and she stopped to say hi. Even though she was running late for her job and knew she is late, she would have been fired. Well, They exchanged numbers. He found out where she lived. She went to work, got fired, came home all in tears. And then out of the blue, there was a knock on her front door. When she answered it, there he was, tears streaming down her face. She said, "I got fired." Anyway, he looked at her and he said, "Well, if you were my woman, you wouldn't need to cry. Wait right here." And so she did. And he ran home, got all his clothes, and he came back. Now, in retrospect, I don't know if he was running to her or running from somebody else. Young and fun and full up, well, you know. He returns with all of his belongings. Now, mind you, this is the second time in their lives that they had ever laid eyes on each other. And here he was, moving in and living with her, lock, stock, and barrel. They had never even had a date before. So, nervous as all heck, they talked and decided to go out later that evening. And as she was getting ready, it happened again. She heard a voice as clearly as you and I talking right now. And that voice said, "Tonight is your wedding night. Tonight is your honeymoon."
So come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, darling. Stop beating around the bush. Yeah. And get it on. Begging you, babe. I wanna get it on.
Well, miracle of miracle, profound and exciting and wondrous. They got it on. By the way, before Zills had ever met Trabue, she had no idea that he was indeed the singingest man alive. As they were together, he sang and he sang and he sang and he worked every day to school, and they went to work until one day while she was at school at lunch, surprise, surprise, the voice said, "Look around. You are not like these other girls. You are a woman. You're pregnant." In fact, she was about 2 days pregnant at the time. That was the last time Zills ever heard that voice, and she spent her entire life listening for it, but that continues in a different part of the story.
The soul of a child is not yet spoiled by the game.
Well, there you go. They were a beautiful young family, and they both worked really hard. Like I said, Trabue was all into his music. He loved that more than anything. Zill loved Trabue more than anything. She still hadn't found her voice, but then she didn't have to. She had a beautiful family to work for. And they both worked, and they worked. And he sang, and he sang, and the more he sang, the more people loved him. And the more people loved him, the more he sang. Until one day, after all that work and all that singing, as things happen, well, the truth is, nothing really changed for Trabue. He was still young, he was still fun, and he was still full of, well, you know what I mean. Things happen, and dark times were ahead. Zills left, but really, who left first? We can't worry about that right now. They began separate lives, sad times, very sad, very bloody. And you know what? They didn't really speak without lawyers for over 23 years.
She said she had to go. She said she needed more from me. I was just a fool.
It was a dark night of the soul for each of them, each in their own way.
Wasting my time, cheating and lying, I'm so screwed up, losing my mind, bitter, unkind. I'm black and blue.
It was years and years of failure after failure for Zills. She finally realized she does have a voice. Well, Tribune did the work that he needed to do to find his soul and his passion again. During all those years, Zills never forgot the feeling she had when her Tribune sat and talked with her. It made her very sad. But there was nothing to do at that time. There was nothing to do except wipe her tears and keep going on.
You'll always be my one and only girl. Number one up on my list.
Excuse me, I have to go blow my nose and get a hanky. And I need a new glass of wine.
Here we are on earth together.
It had been 23 years,
It's you
and it was at their daughter's wedding, where they both showed up, of course, but they had never talked in all those years. It was undeniable. Oh, but what a ruckus. They both were married, had different families, but the moment they stepped in that room together and looked at each other, whoa, what a scandal.
in love, you and I, you and I, you and I, you and I. In my mind, we can conquer the world. In love, you and I, you and I, you and I.
It took a little bit of time. It didn't happen right away, but within a year or so, Zills and Tribune remarried in a new land with new friends, taking their second chance.
Suddenly it happened.
Took me by surprise.
You walked into the door.
Ooh, baby, you stepped into my life.
My life to becoming one,
Sharing life together, having so much fun.
it don't get much better. No. I've got the sun on my horizon, the sun and the moon at my back door. I've got a joy everlasting, and I've got a hope forevermore. 'Cause I've got friends, real true friends, black and blue.